Καλημέρα στην Αθήνα από Βρυξέλλες. Thank you very much for inviting the Conference of Peripheral Maritime Regions to come to your event, which is quite impressive in terms of the program and in terms of the speakers associated to that. I couldn't make it, I'm very sorry for that, in person, but we're going to be speaking via this video because it's very important for the CPMR to express itself into the important subject of the maritime dimension of the European cohesion policy. As you know, the Conference of Peripheral Maritime Region is the association that is dealing with coastal areas and maritime activity throughout its existence, 40 years now, and it addresses regions across the European Union and beyond. Over 150 regions that represent the European Union and they act within the Council of Europe. So, of course, it's very important that we do address the maritime dimension of cohesion policy. It is something we have been fought for many years in CPMR. We have asked and obtained, of course, this special fund, European Maritime and Fisheries Fund, which is now one of the 5 structural funds, with very little financing possibilities. If we consider 6.5 billion euros is not a lot for what we want to do in maritime activity, but it's a beginning. So in order for maritime activities of our regions to be really visible and be realized on the ground, we need to connect this fund and have synergic effects with other European funds. So we are very attentive in all the structural and investment funds that they are actually being negotiated as we speak between our regions, the member states of the Union and the European Commission services. So what we have done in CPMR is actually to analyze how much of the maritime activity, of the maritime policy, of the maritime issues are addressed within the operational programs and the preparation that is taking place today. So we are making some analysis of a group of regions from our members from various countries, Germany, France, the Netherlands, the idea being to see together with them how much of the maritime activity is included, because it's important to really complement the maritime funds with what we can provide within the structural funds. So some of the regions that we have been interviewing for that analysis are the Veneto region, Emilia-Romagna, Marche in Tuscany from Italy, Pays de la Loire, Bretagne, Basse-Normandie, Provence, Alpes-Côte d'Azur in France, Zuid-Holland and North Holland in the Netherlands, Asturias in Spain, the Azores in Portugal, and Schleswig-Holstein in Germany. So that's quite a representative group of regions. We tried really to work together and try and do this analysis that actually doesn't exist. I mean, nobody else is doing it really within the European Commission, to see how much is being taken on in terms of the sea activity in the structural funds. So we are looking what is today called smart specialization strategies. Now, what does this mean? It is really a way of actually concentrating our efforts smartly, as the word says, into what is really important for the region. And we do consider that the maritime activities for our regions, for our maritime region, is very important to be really a specialization in their work. So we are taking the smart specialization strategies, the European structural and investment funds, but also a third element which is important, and it's introduced now into the structural funds regulations, and for which of course CPMR has been really and actively lobbying for, is to be able to create synergies of the various funds, including funds like the research funds, Horizon 2020. So within the newly established common strategy framework, we can see that these synergies can take place. So we examine together with those regions I mentioned before the smart specialization strategies they are doing to actually actively promote sea activities within the structural funds and beyond. And we have found that actually the sea is an important component of these smart specialization strategies. We've seen in regions like in Azores Island that they want to reinforce their position as an intercontinental ocean knowledge base. Of course, it's explained by the fact of the geographical position of Azores, but it's the sea element, the sea component, which is very important. They also want to develop new exploitation models for the living marine resources. So we see that it's very fundamentally, it's at the heart of their priorities, the sea activity. Other regions as well, like Brittany, are quite much involved into the sea activities and smart specialization around the sea activity. Some of our regions are more focusing on specific sea activities, like, for example, the Lazio region in Italy is really dealing with coastal data in particular, which is specific, but it does address the sea dimension. And if we take the Dutch regions or Emilia-Romagna in Italy, they are really dealing on coastal defense. So a second element that we have really witnessed through this analysis we are doing with our regions is that sometimes some of the European Union policies very much linked to the maritime policies are not necessarily addressed in the smart specialization strategies. For example, we haven't seen the protection of the marine environment being fundamentally addressed in the smart specialization strategies, which is a very important environmental component, environmental piece of legislation. The same goes with the implementation of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. And this type of analysis, this environmental legislation is really not addressed. It's been also witnessed by our colleagues in DG Environment. So we see there is an element, a missing element there, where the regions, they haven't been addressing this part of the European Union policies. Another element that complements our analysis, and it's important maybe to be said at this gathering today, is that sometimes regions are submitting smart specialization strategies for maritime activities into different themes, really. And I would like to mention these maritime industries and marine renewable energies. In some of our regions, some of these elements are addressed within maritime industries part of the operational programs, or industrial processes or materials. And this is because it's not really very clear, and that's what we have been asking as CPMR, the Commission, to establish something which could be a maritime industrial policy per se. Because we are all, of course, in agreement that we need a European industrial policy. We go further as CPMR. We actually need an integrated maritime industrial policy because of all these elements of the blue growth and, of course, all the industrial activities we can really create from the sea. So then, a third and important element, I think, that it needs to be mentioned here is that the fact that we have smart specialization strategies and that we can use and address the maritime activity through the structural funds doesn't resolve the problem per se. And I'm speaking about the financial problem. Because if we want to invest in issues like blue biotechnologies, which is a key priority of the European Commission's DG Mare, or is the key priority of the Europe 2020, is a key priority of the regions, and it can be addressed in smart specialization strategies. I don't think we can go as far as to say, with the structural funds funding possibilities, we have sorted the problem. Because we need masses of investment, of private investment, I would say, to that respect, to be able to really implement realistically on the ground those issues in terms of maritime economic policy. So we need to consider the smart specialization strategy and the European investment and structural funds as seeds money, as a possibility to create what we call the leverage effect, with public financings from national level and especially private finances that could be available. And don't forget the industries we spoke before, or the potential of actually investing by the private sector in the sea economy is very, very important. So this is something for us as public authorities to pass across as a message. I wanted to conclude now. I don't want to take too much of your time. So at this stage of our conclusions and the work we have developed with this group of regions, but within CPMR generally, the sea is a fundamental priority within the cohesion policy, and it is reflected in many of the smart specialization strategies. However, not all EU priorities are supported in the same way by those smart specialization strategies, and we mentioned the example of the environment policy of the European Union. And third is the fact that in terms of financing, it's not the end of the game, it's the beginning of the game. the seed capability that the structural funds have into actually creating a larger investment for these smart specialization strategies to really be implemented in the future. So I would like to add by extending a call to the ESPON conference that you are having together and to the ESPON organization, that CPMR is ready to work with you. So by all means, these types of studies, these types of developments, these types of analysis is what we do and we can usefully do together in synergies, which is the modus operandi today. We have worked in the past with you, ESPON, in the project called AMSER, which was really to work with the research program and how the regions have been implementing the former FP7 program, which of course now is called Horizon 2020. So I would be delighted to be able to extend our cooperation together in the future, to actually be able to work together and exactly what I've been presenting you so far, how we can identify smart specialization strategies that would create blue growth through structural funds and beyond. Thank you very much for dedicating this slot to CPMR, and I would like to wish you all a very productive and full of sun day in Athens. Thank you.